is this good? Because you're just like trying to get whatever's in your head out, and you're like, is anybody gonna like it? It's similar with what I do as well. So my philosophy most of the time and motto is just don't be the reason it sucks.
So, Jeremy, you lived in my house probably like in 2006 and 7.
Yeah.
I had a kind of a crappy house in South Provo, and
Yeah.
Jeremy, you lived in my dungeon
In the
basement. Yeah.
I think I was the first person to ever sleep there. I just slept on the floor in the basement.
Did you really, right when I bought it?
Yeah.
That is so funny. Yeah, we were so young. So you're from Blackfoot, Idaho.
I am.
Which is a small farming community in East Idaho.
Yeah, Southeast Idaho.
Southeast Idaho.
It's right between Pocatello and Idaho Falls.
You come to BYU or UVU. Which one was it?
I went to BYU.
BYU. You live in my basement. And I just remember you as kind of a happy-go-lucky, younger. How I'm like probably I'm 40. How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, yeah, so. You were younger. You were kind of like a little brother.
Yeah, I was telling my wife that it seems like, because I was talking about doing this, and then I was like, it's kind of funny to me that I'm friends with everybody's older brother when they have younger brothers that are the same age as me, but I don't know any.
Yeah,
them.
You're my younger brother's age.
Yeah,
you're Matt's age. So you live in my basement. You're this happy-go-lucky. I always remember you just kind of like living life by the seat of your pants. I don't remember you having like, you're just kind of like doing whatever. This is my perspective.
Yeah,
I have no idea what was going on in your head.
When I lived in your basement, I didn't have a car. I rode a scooter everywhere.
Yeah.
In the wintertime. I crashed it on the street one night.
Did I ever give you a ride, I hope?
I think you gave me a ride once or twice. I remember you gave me a ride. We went to a car dealership once.
Did I take you?
Yeah, to look for a vehicle or something.
I was always trying to help people get going.
But I remember my diet during that time. My parents for Christmas bought me a $200 gift card to Smith's grocery store.
That's a big deal.
And so every Saturday I would go buy a thing of Western Family Pop-Tarts and a thing of cinnamon rolls, and I would just eat that throughout the week.
How did your body feel at that time?
Oh man, I don't know. I had crazy metabolism still, so
I know. Look at you.
But it was, I don't know. I could probably have eaten a lot better. Well, I can still eat a lot better. We can always eat better.
You're still here.
Yeah, I'm alive.
You're doing great. How would you just?
I ate a lot of popcorn because I worked at the movie theater at that time too.
That's what I'm saying. Is you just seem like this kid that was kind of just living by luck, eating Pop-Tarts, crashing scooters,
just trying to make it in the world.
Yeah. And now, how would you describe your look currently?
I don't know.
You look great, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I really like it. It's an iconic look. For those of you who don't know Jeremy, most will. He is one of the original cast members of Studio C, which was a hit sketch comedy show.
Yeah.
And now you're part of JK Studios.
Yeah.
And I'll let you tell now, like, what are you doing now? Since college, what was your path, I guess?
Oh, well, since college, I studied film at BYU. Incidentally, the short that I made to get into the film program was shot partly in your basement.
Oh,
because
was it a horror movie?
No. Okay. Well, I was testing out I was gonna go film our roommate Greg.
Yes.
He was gonna he was like, I'm gonna go work out, and I was like, well, this sounds like fun, and I was just testing, like just turning on my camera, making sure it worked, and I started filming our other roommate Chris. He walked out of the room and was just like looked really sad and stressed out, and I just filmed him while he brushed his teeth, and he just looked in the mirror and he went. And then he looks over at me. He's like, want to hear something crazy? I got Eric's truck towed last night because he borrowed your truck and it got towed.
I remember this.
And so I was like, I guess I'll just follow you around while you try to get it back. And that's what I did for that day. And that's actually got me into the film program. So studied film.
Oh my gosh, this is awesome. Do you still have this film?
Yeah, it's called Chris Basil and the Razzle Dazzle Day.
Oh my gosh, please.
I'll send you a link
okay,
to it.
I want this.
So I graduated from BYU. While I was at BYU, I was in a sketch comedy group called Divine Comedy, which has been around for a while, and it's still around. But my friends and I that were in that, we eventually started a show for BYU TV called Studio C, sketch comedy, and it was moderately successful.
I don't know about moderately. I mean, in a vacuum, it's very successful, like in our culture, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably, is there a more popular TV show in like the Latter-day Saint community? Like I don't know that there is.
General Conference.
Yeah, there you go.
I know. And then, so me and my 9 other friends, or 10 of us, we left that show and started our own company called JK Studios. And we've worked on projects ever since all together. And we have a movie coming out soon called Go West. It's a Western comedy about people leaving Independence, Missouri and heading out west on the Oregon Trail. But yeah, I direct commercials and movies and some television stuff, and just trying to make it in the world, trying to provide for my children.
I know.
And my wife. So
your wife is awesome. I knew her growing up.
Yeah, she's great.
Speaking of children, how many do you have?
I have 4 right now. We'll have a 5th. I don't know when this is going to come out, so I might already
probably in
a
couple weeks.
Okay. Well, we're going to have a 5th one. So,
dude, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I was so stoked with how big Studio C got, and then JK Studios, and to see your success.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, it's fun when you see your friends like do something. I would never have guessed this path for you. Would you have guessed this path for yourself?
Probably not. No.
Like, what would I mean, when you wake up today, like, are you surprised with your life? How do you feel about where things are?
I think every time when I wake up, I'm always tired. So, no, I'm very happy with where my life is and stuff. Could it be better? Yeah. Could it be worse? Yeah, it always can be, but just try to appreciate what you have right now. And I always tell myself that whatever bad day I'm having right now, I still have been able to do what I really wanted to do with my life. And I think that's a real gift, and not everybody gets to see that. And, could it be to a greater degree? Yeah, of course. But the fact that like I've been able to do anything in the field that I studied, the field that I've always wanted to do, and that I can have kids as like an artist and somebody who just makes kind of dumb jokes for a living. It's pretty crazy.
Dude, it is crazy. I feel very similar to you. Not that I'm making dumb jokes.
We make music.
Mine are extra dumb. Yours are just dumb. Yeah.
Well, I really wanted to do music. So in college, Chris Deuce and I had a band called Hot Parents. And
I remember that. And it was cool. It was weird.
Yeah.
It was like lo-fi dancey stuff, right?
Yeah. We were very popular amongst all the graphic designers and the artists.
Yeah. Unfortunately, if it doesn't get past that,
yeah.
You guys were fun though. And
yeah.
Did you have visuals with it? Like you were doing some stuff.
Yeah, we did sometimes, but it kind of all depended on whatever mood we were in. Yeah. There was one show where we just projected a picture of Fozzie Bear behind us going like this.
Wait, like this? Just a V?
Yeah. Just like this. Just Fozzie. Just
was he moving or was he just standing?
No, it was just a still image of Fozzie Bear.
Powerful.
Yeah.
Powerful imagery.
There was one time where we played a show, and I want to say behind us was the 1960s Batman movie where Batman's running with the bomb, intercut with Willow running. So it looks like Batman's chasing Willow with the bomb. Yeah, Chris edited those things. I contributed the Fozzie Bear picture.
Was the Batman bomb, was it the classic, just perfectly spherical, round, shiny thing with a wick?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
I remember one time, my biggest contribution to the visuals for Hot Parents was I made a video that synced up that said kick anytime the
kick?
bass drum kicked, and then it said snare anytime a snare hit. So there was a show where it just said kick, snare, kick, snare throughout.
Very, very predictive.
You know.
That's genius. Okay, so you're doing JK Studios now, making features. Do you do stuff that's just Jeremy Warner? Are you doing mostly collaborations?
Yeah, I made everything, like film is just collaborative by nature, you know. At the beginning of 2020, I started directing my first feature film, and then the pandemic happened, and so it got put on hiatus and all that jazz. And then I was able to finish principal photography around this time last year, a year ago. So
cool.
2 years after that, and then just getting it through the last stages of post-production. So kind of in the middle of
that's cool
various stages of things, you know.
Yeah.
I film just a lot of things that, like, life stuff, you know, that's really just kind of personal record stuff, you know.
Yeah. You're kind of an enigma. I mean, like you're the to me, like you're the JK Studio, you're the like homeless looking guy.
Yeah.
You know, kind of the weird one. And you don't reveal much on social media, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The point I'm getting is you are kind of like this mysterious character. And what do you think would surprise people about you if they knew it?
I think it surprises people that I have as many kids as I do. And I think some people are surprised that I'm even married. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
There's been a lot of times where, I mean, I'm not a perfect person at all.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Hoobastank wrote a song about you.
Yeah. It's the reasons. There's so many. But I remember talking to my friend's brother-in-law, just like asking, like, I like to, whenever I meet people, like a lot of time I like having a conversation, you know, when I'm actually like trying to get to know somebody and just asking them questions and just get to know that, you know. And I think it goes back to like when I was a missionary for the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as the proper noun title.
Yeah, totally.
And just nobody really wanted to listen to us. So I just got in the habit of just like, oh, well then tell us about yourself, you know, just like, and people open up a lot of times. So, but I remember I was talking to my friend's brother-in-law and just having a conversation with him. And then at the end, he's like, you know, this is a lot different than I thought it would be, like meeting him. Like, oh, okay. I don't know what that means, but all right.
So, well, I get it.
So,
yeah. So people would be surprised that you have 4, almost 5 children, that you're married.
Yeah.
I don't
know if that was a good answer.
No, I think it's a great answer. Because in the world of comedy, is there many people that have children that are supporting large families that you know of? I mean, I can't think of any big comics that reveal that they have 4 kids.
Jim Gaffigan is the
one.
How
many does he
He's
have?
Got 5. So.
Oh, do you think you'll beat him?
Oh, I don't know.
You're going for the tie?
I don't want to buy another car.
Oh yeah, what are you driving?
We have a Chrysler Pacifica. It's got 7 seats. So.
Yeah.
I get in the grand scheme of things, obviously, like if you go back and look at all the money that we spend throughout our lives, it all amounts to, you know, whatever. And like those things break and they go away and we eat expensive meals and it just whatever. And we all end up dying anyways. So, you know, that's just what happens to us. And so I get the idea, like it's short-sighted to sometimes think like, oh, I don't want to get another car for but like it's another person's lot, you know. But then again, it's like also
Yeah.
it's another person's life that you have to take care of and stuff like that.
It's true.
It's a commitment.
It is a commitment. It's a very serious commitment. I mean, being a fatherhood changed my whole life and everything.
Yeah.
That's when I got very serious with like career.
Well, it's a motivator to, you know, I think, well, when I lived with you, I didn't really have not much to live for, in a sense that like I didn't have people counting on me.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of responsibilities.
Yeah.
Probably like my favorite year of my life, like the most fun year of my life was like that year, like 2007.
Yeah.
Like, because I had the most freedom to the smallest responsibilities and obligations. And like, cause I didn't have a car payment or anything. I just had to figure out how to pay for rent. And it's like, cool. And it's just very aimless.
Yeah.
Very, very aimless. And then, you know, continued through college and like, okay, I have to make this amount of money to pay for my truck. And then, you know, my rent. And then, I was still pretty aimless. Just kind of just didn't really focus on it. I was studying film, but I was like, I don't know if I'll ever do this. And I just spent my time goofing off, making music, stuff like that.
At this time, did you feel like guided in your life? I mean, what was like your relationship to God? Did you feel guided or did you just feel like you're floating around? Did you always like feel connected growing up?
Well, growing up, I didn't come from a super religious background. I always, because I was Presbyterian when I was a little kid. And we go to church a lot, and my one of my best friends, he was our pastor's son, and so I was always there. You know,
yeah,
religion was always like kind of a thing in my life, but it wasn't like, I guess it's never been like this. I've never felt buried under or strangled by like religious restriction, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Because I didn't grow up in a strict household. And like, it just was never anything like that to me.
Is it kind of like, you don't feel buried because do you think you had?
Well, I'll say this. I grew up seeing a lot of people. So I credit this a lot. My grandma I lived with my grandparents in South Dakota when I was really little, because my parents got divorced and then, you know, had to go live with them.
Okay.
And my grandma watched Jerry Springer all the time.
Oh, quality programming right there.
And as a kid, I remember seeing that and being like, I don't want to be like any of these people. What are they doing?
Yeah.
What's causing this to happen? And that really, more than anything, outside, like, more than like church, more than religion or anything like that, seeing that and just being like, what are they doing? Okay, don't do that. And that's just always been kind of like a guiding principle in my life. Don't be like a, you know, and like, it takes all kinds of people in this world, but I just don't want to be like a person on Jerry Springer. They're all children of God. Yeah.
I mean, that's a great perspective. I mean, you watch someone like ruin their lives and it's like, how'd they get there? Of course, that's a bad path.
Well, and I feel like, cause I have, you know, friends that grew up in a lot more strict families and stuff like that. Sometimes we're only told, don't do this, and not necessarily why, or like, this is what happens. So
totally.
And sometimes seeing like I mean, I just saw a lot of examples, good, bad, and everything in between growing up, that I think that more than anything kind of shaped where I would go. And I always felt like, you know, I can't really say with a surety that I feel like God has ever like spoken to me or told me anything like that, because I don't think that's happened personally for me. I don't think that's something, I'm not saying that it can't happen though.
Yeah.
And like, there's always the hope that it will, but, you know, I just figured in a lot of ways, just like following, like on paper and stuff, like the way that I've lived my life is pretty ideal for like the tenets of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but sometimes people look at me and they're like,
yeah,
you wouldn't necessarily think that.
Well, I mean, what does a true follower look like? I don't know.
And it take, like I said, it takes all kinds, but I don't know if that necessarily answered your question, but like, I mean,
I do find it interesting that you saw, like, a lot of people that I know like have to learn for themselves. They have to like go get their heart broken. They have to go like test the waters to know. And it's interesting that you saw and you're like, you said, okay, well, I can see a connection. Like this leads to that. I don't want that end. So I'm not going to start here. And even though maybe you don't feel God has like spoken directly to you, do you think that because of living like Christian principles, or what we call the commandments, living principles, that you have benefited from like the promises of following God? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, like what is your incentive? Maybe if he hasn't talked to you, what is your incentive to follow him?
I think, I don't remember what the quote is, but like something about like, if you tell the truth or whatever, you don't have to remember anything.
Yeah.
And so
that's a good one.
I don't know who said it. Was it?
No, I know what you mean. I know the quote. Yeah. If you don't have to like backtrack and remember all the lies you have to cover up.
And I think that, like I said, I think every single like tenet of the religion, that we're told like do this, avoid this. I can pinpoint like an example in my life where I saw like the direct consequences and like, okay, I don't necessarily want that for myself. Like,
yeah,
because like, you know, when it comes to like smoking and drinking or drug use, like my grandma smoked all the time. And so like, I know so many people that I love and care for that drink, smoke, do drugs, and it's just not for me. My grandma got emphysema and died from it. My uncle was killed by a drunk driver, you know, and it's just like, there's all these like things from my childhood where I saw like a direct consequence from actions, you know, from these, you know, if that makes sense.
You're surprisingly practical.
Yeah.
I mean, you're very, I don't know, I'm getting that. I didn't know this about you, but this is a very practical take on life.
Yeah. It's kind of like, well, if you don't do this, I'm risk averse. I'm pretty risk averse.
Okay. Yeah. Except in your career choice.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. But, so, you know, calculated risks.
Yeah.
You just want to try to figure out how to make whatever it is that you really want to work. It's hard. It's not easy, but
your career has to have some high highs and low lows, right?
Yeah.
I know mine does.
Yeah. Like, I mean, you made music for the Utah Jazz this year.
Yeah. And you're wearing the hat. Yeah. And they're one of my favorite clients. I love those guys.
Yeah.
But I mean,
like, that's super awesome.
What I love about my career, this is what I love and I hate. It's so up and down that I'm constantly looking to be close to God because I want the blessings.
Yeah.
When it's good, I make it a priority to be grateful. I practice gratitude all the time. And then when it's hard, I don't feel like I'm just coming to ask him for stuff. Like I feel like I have like a rapport with him, that he knows that I'm not going to leave him and I know that he won't leave me.
Yeah. And
I feel like my career is perfect for that because it's so unstable.
No, I hear you on that.
Do you feel that?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think, yeah, when it comes to high highs and low lows, I think sometimes like nobody knows like how, like when you're composing music or whatever, like I'm sure nobody knows like the lonely moments of like, what am I even doing here?
Oh man.
Is this good? Because you're just like trying to get whatever's in your head out and you're like, is anybody going to like it? It's similar with, you know, what I do as well. So, and my philosophy most of the time, and motto is just don't be the reason it sucks. Like, and so as long as I always want to do my best at whatever it is that I'm doing, even if sometimes it's like doesn't seem like it's gonna work or anything like that. And
Okay, can I pause you there?
Yeah.
That right there, doing your best wherever you are, is, I think, I mean, that is one of the best lessons in life, because, this is supported by Eckhart Tolle, who's one of my favorite authors. He says, wherever you are in that moment, you do your best. You do your best wherever you are. Because if you're doing something that maybe it's a job you're doing for really cheap, or you're trying to do something like as a spec work to get more work.
Mm-hmm.
If you're worried about something else, you're not doing your best. If you're sitting in front of someone in your family or a friend, and you're preoccupied mentally, you can't do your best to be there. And the only true growth comes from doing your best wherever you are, and wherever you are is what you have, and that's exactly where you're supposed to be. I just love that idea so much, that wherever you are, do your best. So that's cool to hear you say that.
Oh yeah, because like if you always like are doing your best, and like even if something doesn't work out, you probably like learned something from it, and you at least know like the process of elimination. Say, well, I guess don't do that again. You know, you learn from mistakes. I think you're always going to make mistakes. But make new ones. Don't repeat the same ones, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I love that philosophy. What do you know now that you wish you would have known back when you were starting your career, or starting your family, or deciding how you were going to live your life?
Just everything is so pretty in this life is pretty temporary. You know, you can't rest on your laurels. You can't just do one thing and call it good. I mean, unless you like, wrote a hit song, you just become a one-hit wonder and live off royalties and stuff like that, then that's great. But like, everybody else, there's no real catch-all making it, like,
Mm-hmm.
because you just have to, you do it again and again and again. I remember sitting in my living room right after my first son was born. For some reason, my missionary journal was sitting out, and I opened it up, and like it had just a list of goals that I had in my life. And I was 28 at the time, 27.
Mm-hmm.
I was just reading through it all, and like I had accomplished every single one of those goals, and I was only 20. There were goals I set when I was like 19 and stuff, but and then like you accomplish those goals, and it's like, okay, well, time to die, I guess. No, not yeah. That, but it's yeah. Like, okay, I guess you do those same goals, only do it better this time.
Yeah,
you do it again and again, and how much life is repetitive, and it's temporary but cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Sisyphus pushing a boulder up the hill, or Sunday school answers, read your scriptures, pray. There's a reason why, like, there's just kind of like the basic tenets of anything. Like, this is what you do and you get better. Like, I don't work out, but I know that there's some kind of like regimen. Like you build muscles this way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would just wish that I would have been able to like talk to somebody that had like done what I am doing and what I'm trying to do,
Yeah. Like a mentor.
Yeah. When I was like really young.
What would you tell someone who's looking for a mentor, who's in college wanting to do comedy or film or writing?
Good luck. I don't know. No, I'd say just stick with it, because honestly, everybody that I know that has just really loved something and just stuck with it, they found success. And again, like, success is relative and everything, but like just the fact of doing it, like you do music,
Mm-hmm.
I saw Brandon Campbell the other day at Funbox in Orem, that bounce park thing.
Yeah.
But like, Brandon and Elaine and Tyler and Chris, like Neon Tree, they're all like, you just didn't, if you just don't quit, you don't stop, and you you'll make it, I always the other thing I always say is like, well, it either is going to work out or we're all going to die. Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those two is going to happen.
Yeah. My wife says that sometimes.
So you're either going to accomplish it, or you're going to pass away in the middle of it.
I always bring up this quote. It's consistency guarantees success. It just doesn't guarantee when. Do you believe that?
Oh yeah, I think so.
I do too. Yeah. And it's like, I'm totally with you, because I remember when I went to see on the big screen a film that I scored for the first time.
Oh, awesome.
And it was in LA as a premiere. It was like in 2012. And it was like, I'm in a theater full of people. They're loving this movie. My music's blasting out. I'm like, that is the coolest thing. That's what I wanted as a kid. I wanted to score films. It's not some Hollywood blockbuster.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that was.
But you did it.
I did it. And it was beautiful and amazing. And it made me want to do more. But also, it just made me realize that goals and reaching goals, they're not the end. It's not the end at all. It's like, it's not. Like, now I've done so many more things. And yeah, I've done stuff for the Utah Jazz and going to the stadium and hearing my music. And it was so cool and like amazing. But it's not the end to me. There's always the next thing. It's always the growth. And so now my value is like the growth that I'm going to experience.
Yeah.
And instead of my output, it's who I become. And then my output gets better and better.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have known that instead of relying on like hitting these milestone goals.
I remember reading in Rolling Stone when Death Cab for Cutie's Plans album came out, and it was talking about on like their manager came downstairs or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, your guys' album is the #1 album in the world." And the article was talking about they were sitting there eating cereal, and they're like, oh, okay, like nothing changed.
Yeah.
It's like, we still have to, do everything else.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying don't set goals. I'm not saying don't try,
right.
But like, it's like the idea that like happiness or whatever is attainable from when you hit this milestone, you're going to hit there and you're going to be like, I thought there'd be more.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, well, I'm not, and it's easier said than done. Being happy isn't like it's not necessarily a switch or anything like that.
Yeah. What's your view on that? Do you search for happiness, or like, what's your philosophy during the day? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Are you looking for happiness? Like, what are you valuing, I guess?
I don't know. I try to just find happiness in whatever it is that I'm doing. Like lately, especially after the pandemic and during the pandemic, we had just had our fourth child, and production on my film paused. I didn't know what was happening in the world, but I decided to just kind of look at it as like, well, I never got to spend this kind of time with my parents. Like, I didn't even live with my parents when I was a kid. So, but like, I didn't get to spend this kind of time with my family when I was a kid. And I know like how special this opportunity is to kind of be here with each other, as much as it also simultaneously sucked. But that's everything, man. Life is like good and bad all the time, existing in hand, and it's like, oh, there's nice things happening now, there's also bad things. You can try to have a healthy balance of both to keep you kind of level-headed.
Yeah.
But like trying to really appreciate the fact that like in this time in history, at this moment, I get to be here with all my children and my wife, and it's pretty special. It's difficult, but I think all things that are difficult are not all things that are difficult. Everything worth things there's difficulty to it in some way. There's either a learning curve or struggle that you have while you're in the search for it. it also was the first time we would go on drives just around the state and like really just kind of explore where we live, like, and finding, because I've lived here for longer than anywhere else. I moved here in 2003, and just kind of looking at what is here by us, and just finding like what do I love about this place? Because any place that you go to, because people, Provo gets a bad rap.
Mm-hmm.
I like a lot of time. All places get a bad rap, and there are places that I don't care for,
Mm-hmm.
But like when you actually are present wherever you are, and you just kind of find what is it that makes me happy here? What do I love about this place? What if I left here? What would I miss? And like trying to just know those things and hold on to those things and stuff. And I think I don't know if that answered the question, but like that's kind of what, like, I've started taking my kids we go to a lot of like sporting events and stuff, because it's like how cool. Because when I was a kid, I would have loved to go to any like professional sport event, but I lived in South Dakota. And so like kind of, maybe it's like wish fulfillment of my childhood self trying to give it to my children, but like also, creating memories with them, just trying to make things special, and make things feel like they are unique and special, instead of just like, oh, okay, now I gotta go do this. It's like, well, yeah.
I think that's really beautiful. You came from a hard childhood with not a lot of family interaction and guidance and closeness. And because of the lack of that, you really want to make it special for your kids. And I can see that when I see your family. They all like, I mean, you have a beautiful family, and you can tell you all like each other a lot. That was one of the beautiful things about the pandemic is not only were we forced to be with those who were close by, and that could be heaven or hell for some people.
Yeah.
If you value, if you love your family, hopefully it was a good thing. It was for me. I also like the metaphor that you said of you explored where you are and just like loved it. I love the metaphor of doing that for ourselves, like in our mind. The pandemic slowed things down for me, where I got really introspective and just learned to be still within myself. And I like that idea as well. I mean, I think it was a cool metaphor about how we go in and do that as well, and just like be present and love the beautiful things, and appreciating the hard stuff, the hard things and the mundane things, which make the good stuff even better, because there's that wide range.
Yeah.
Dude, what's your daily practice with the divine?
We try to have family prayer with the family at night. Sometimes it's not always the most ideal situations, because it gets busy. Honestly, like I could probably, improve and like pray more, but like I pray silently in the morning, yeah, just try to always just be thinking about, not that I'm constantly thinking about God, but like I'm just like, I think, I don't know. Have you ever seen Silence, the Martin Scorsese movie?
Oh my gosh, it's such a powerful,
I think
sad movie. Yes.
That movie sums up like kind of my, like, I've never seen something just like present like that's how I feel,
Okay, tell me who are you identifying with?
With Andrew Garfield's character.
Okay, the one who
is just met with silence, throughout. I'm not saying that God like can't do any of these things. Like it's one of those things where like I just haven't felt like I have really experienced it. But I believe and I hope that can happen for me.
Yeah.
But it like I said, it takes all kinds and stuff, and I think if I just had the expectation, and I guess the closest thing to like real, like, I don't know, revelation or anything like that I ever really experienced was when I was on my mission at the beginning. I was told I was going to hell a lot by people.
Wait, where'd you go on your mission?
I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, but
Okay.
at the beginning I was in Mena, Arkansas.
Okay.
And I just remember not fearing going to hell if I was wrong, because I mean, it's like, oh well, a lot of my friends are Mormons, and if it's like we're all in hell, I guess it'd be,
we're all together.
Yeah. In that way, it's like there's probably a lot of cool people there, bad people too,
Yeah.
But I think if God loves us I think being a dad really changed my perspective about God and stuff like that. But I'll get to that in a minute. But I remember thinking, not being scared of going to hell, but being scared of just non-existence afterwards. Like, what if there is nothing here? And I can't tell you with a surety that what happens when we die. I've met some people who have, their heart has stopped and were dead, and they've come back, and they actually shared some really cool things with me, but I didn't necessarily understand what they were talking about because I've just I haven't died, but so a fear came over me where I was like, what if this is it? What if life, this is all there is? And I remember praying really hard to just get an answer and everything. And then like, I didn't hear a voice or anything. I just felt, I'm okay, and maybe that was the answer, just that calmness, as, the still small voice or whatever, didn't hear a voice, but I felt, I just stopped worrying, and I think the lack of worry, helped me to not be so stressed out, because at the end of the day, I just want to be the best that I can be, and just to be like somebody that I want. And I know this isn't always the case, but I like, because we're all humans and stuff, but I want every time like I have some kind of interaction with somebody, talk to a friend or anybody, to leave them, leave them better than when I found them, kind of like you want to leave your campsite better than when you found it.
Dude, you're an Eagle Scout, I bet.
No, I'm actually not.
Okay.
I'm a life scout. I didn't do environmental science, and I didn't do personal management. Because I'm aimless, and it's like 6 months. I don't even know what I'm going to be doing. I can't commit to that.
You're such a Wes Anderson character. You'd be amazing as some sort of ranger.
I'm available.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
your question initially was, what do I do on a daily basis to
weekly? I mean, just what is your practice? What is your routine?
We go to church when possible, like when we're not sick or anything, or not traveling. Just try to be a good person, be a good dad, and be a good husband. Like I was saying earlier, like becoming a father kind of changed my perspective a little on God, and in a positive way.
Yeah, me too.
Well, on one side of it, it made me wonder, like, in all honesty, it made me think, like, how could my like mother like abandon me like this, and then the other side was like, everybody out there either does or should have somebody that loves them as much as I love this person here. And so I chose to focus on that instead of the negative, but in knowing that, like, if I love my child this much, and I'm so imperfect, that if God is perfect, I can't imagine how much more loving he would be. And I can't imagine him being so willing and ready to damn us all. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
and so being a dad, like, you know, it's you have to be an authority figure of some sort.
Yeah.
And like, but it's for what you believe in your heart. I would hope is for the good of and safety of your children.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what, and I like to think that that's what God wants from, is asking of us. And that after all is said and done, even, I don't know, like, obviously I'm not God, but I can't ever imagine, just casting my children out
Mm-hmm.
forever.
That's beautiful.
There are things that I'm sure, like, if they did something, like, if they were awful criminals and stuff, would it be upsetting? Yes, but there'd still be a part of me that loves them, and it's just like,
You help make them.
yeah, and it's like, it's probably some of it's on me,
Yeah.
but we obviously hope for the best.
Yeah.
In everything. Otherwise, if you don't hope for the best, why do anything?
Hey, good point. I know. Then it's just nihilism and spirals down.
And and even if, like, I mean, I hope and I pray that, there's life beyond this, and that we'll all be happy.
Yeah.
If I'm wrong, there's,
you had a good life.
Yeah, it's
you had
like,
a good run.
Okay. Well, I didn't. Did you see John Wick Chapter 4?
Oh yeah.
When he's praying, and he's like, he goes to the church, and his friend asks him, "Do you believe in God?" And he's like, "No." It's like, "Then why are you here?" And he says, "Maybe I'm wrong."
Yeah.
And having that, not necessarily being like a 100% doubter about it all, but like, I think having that ability to kind of bend to the idea, like, that it's like, I might be wrong. I don't know. I guess that, like, knowing that you could be wrong about something is a lot, prevents me from, like, really digging my heels in on anything,
Dude, I totally agree.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I don't want to be like
think
a jerk about this.
I think you're describing faith, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you're describing faith. If you know or have answers to it, it's not actual faith. Faith is stepping into the darkness. It's darkness. Like, you don't know if there's an afterlife. God told you to stop worrying about it, or you had the feeling to stop worrying about it. And I think it's interesting you say God didn't tell me with words. I don't think I've ever been told with words, but the more I try to listen, it's just feelings and impressions. And the reason why I think they're from God is because when I follow them, the fruit of those actions and the blessings and consequences that come are beautiful and good.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how I continue to build my testimony, is through those interactions. So I'm not trying to say I know your testimony. It might be deeper than you think, just based off impressions and feelings you get.
Yeah.
And the way you live your life. But yeah, dude, I think you're describing faith. I don't think it's healthy I personally don't think it's healthy to say you know things. If I don't know, maybe I don't know. I don't want to step in that water because I don't know. Once again, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, I think it's actually beautiful to have faith and not have the miracle yet.
Yeah.
I think that's a great place to be.
Well, and I think back to silence. I think that's one thing that's really great. I don't know. That movie is just like, really, really good.
It's a hard watch.
Well, when he finally actually does hear God speak to him, he says, "Step on me, do it.
Yeah.
It's better for you. Like, I don't want you to suffer anymore.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this because I already did it all."
Yeah.
And I think there's just very beautiful. It's very simple. It's very beautiful. And it's not the expected faith affirming or,
I don't know.
like miraculous thing that people would necessarily expect,
Yeah.
it's not like it's not grandiose.
I know. I mean, I think that we love a good story. And as believers, we love like, oh, this challenge happened and then we were immediately blessed, or we had this miraculous thing. But I think the beauty of life is in the unknowing and in the hard stuff, because it gives us so much beauty on the other end. I don't know if that makes sense, but the not knowing and the stepping in darkness, which is very uncomfortable and hard, is the beautiful part, right?
Well, and I think, I don't even, it might have been an EFY theme, or maybe it was like a Ward theme from when I was a teenager or something. But like joy in the journey, that's probably somewhere in this.
No, it is. It was an EFY thing. EFY is a youth group, youth like summer camp for the Latter-day Saints. But yeah, like, I remember joining the journey.
But like, especially when I realized that I had accomplished all my goals and I was still like young, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I'm not any more happy. But like, relative, like you look back and you don't notice everything until you look back where you came from. But finding that joy in the journey is something that I think anybody can benefit from, whatever belief you subscribe to, if you or non-belief that you subscribe to, just like being happy. And I think that's probably pretty hippie-ish as well.
Well, I mean, you have the look, right?
So
I think we should.
I really liked. Speaking of hippies and stuff, did you see Jesus Revolution?
I loved it.
I really liked it too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I was crying. I've followed Greg Laurie for a while on Instagram.
Oh really?
I really like that guy. Yeah, I think he's a great. He is very good at communicating.
I didn't know what it was about, except I was like, oh, Kelsey Grammer's in it, and it like the trailer had good music in it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this looks like a cool movie. Yeah, and the kid from Super 8, but I was like, this is cool.
No, it was really good. That's a good movie. Yeah, I think God talks to his children in their language, and that's another way that he talked to the hippies. I really believe that. Like, he talks to all of us in the ways that we will understand him.
There was a guy on my mission when we knocked on his door. This was in Mina. And we were like, hey, we're here to spread the news that God has called a prophet to speak to us in these latter days. And the guy's like, oh yeah, I believe God speaks to us. I believe God speaks to us through music. And I was like, oh, cool. And then he says, have you ever heard of the band Creed?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, yeah. And then he goes, hello, my friend, we meet again. It's been a while. Where should I begin? And I was like, yeah, that's Creed.
I love that.
But like, art and mute, like, I think, we're both do art. So, I'm not like a drawing person. I mean, I can draw as much as like a person that has dexterity with their hand can draw. I'm not classically trained or anything like that, but I think finding joy and like, and like, and guidance and comfort and things in art is really wonderful.
It's a beautiful way to live. That's for
and
sure.
it's a creating something. I think that's probably the most, like, creating kids, like,
the best.
And just making anything, probably the most, you asked me, what do I do to commune with the divine? It's probably the most divine things that we do all in any day, like just making things matter unorganized.
Dude, that's beautiful.
So,
well, this has been awesome. I think we should leave it there. Dude, thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you.
We'll link to do you have a sweet website?
I do have a website. Okay. I should probably update it though.
Is it like The Office where it's like construction that has the guy on the jackhammer coming?
Oh no.
See what I'm talking about?
I don't remember. No, my website, it's jeremywarnerclassic.com.
I like that. Okay. Thanks, brother.
So, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. More importantly, I hope you feel closer to your Creator. If you find yourself wanting to strengthen your relationship with God, I'm a huge fan of the Skylight app. It's full of beautiful, high-quality daily spiritual practices. Finally, never forget, in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him.